Well, so now we have to read all the notes, we have to learn how to read all the different notes using the bass clef. So this is for the note written in the bass staff, of course, the lower one. This is, of course, the bass clef. We now are going to use the same method as we used before for the treble clef. So we have to use a sound of reference, which is of course the middle C of the piano, and then we have to find how to represent this sound of reference, the middle C. And we're going to call it the middle C. Before we did it for the treble clef, now we're going to do, of course, for the bass clef. But please let me notice that while in the case of the treble clef we use the first ledger line right below the first line here, right below the first line of the pentagram of the staff. Now again we're going to use, to represent the sound, the middle C in the bass clef, we are going to use the first ledger line above the fifth line of the pentagram. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the fifth ledger line. The fifth line. So above the fifth ledger line, we're going to put the first ledger line, and on the first ledger line we're going to write the dot. So this is the note which represent, please notice that it is of course in the bass clef. So please note that this is the note that represent the middle C of the piano when we have to write it using the bass clef. Okay. So now, of course, we can say that the left hand commonly plays the notes below the middle C. So now we have to find the lower notes than the middle C, than this C. So while in the case of the treble clef we use the ascending scale, so we found that all the notes, all the upper notes, we could say starting from the middle C. Now we have to find all the lower notes starting from the middle C. So we are going to use while in the previous case, in the case of the treble clef, we use the ascending scale, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now we have, of course, to use the descending scale, so which is C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. It is exactly the opposite. We go in the opposite direction than in the previous case. So now we have to find the sound which is next lower, the next lower sound than the middle C. So we have to write the note above the fifth line. So this will be the correct note. As you can see, I have now the dot which is above the fifth line. Okay, while in the case of the middle C I used the first ledger line. So it is I think it is very intuitive, it is very clear. If I go down in this way, it means that I go to lower notes. It is exactly as in the treble clef. So now we are going to find the next note, which is the next lower note, which is of course the A note. So we are going to write the dot, the note on the fifth line, exactly on the fifth line. Then the G, which will be the next lower note. So we are going to write it above the fifth line, so in the space above, in the space below the fifth line, in the fourth space, while we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is the fourth space, and here we have the G note. Then if we go down again, we go to the F note, so we have of course to write it on the fourth line this way. Then the E will be on the third space this way. Then the D, we now come to the D note, which is on the third line. Then here we arrive to the next C, so the C of the following lower octave, the D of the lower octave than the previous D, than the middle C, of course. So here we have, and here we find it. We write it in the second space. Then of course we go on, so to the B, again the B, which is of course the lower B than this B. It is the lower octave than this B. Then of course we go to the A note, which it is on the first space. Then on the G, which is on the first line. Then of course the F, which is below the first line. It is of course, yes, below the first line. And now we have if we want to go to the next lower note, of course now we have to use again the lower ledger lines. So now I use the first ledger line, and on this I write the dot, and this will represent the E note, which is the next lower note. Then I go down, I write the next note below the first ledger line, yes, of course. Then I have to use again the second ledger line if I want to go even down to a lower note. So I have to use this, and here I find the C note, which is lower 2 octaves than the previous C, the middle C. And then again we can go to the below the second ledger line, and here we find the B note. So of course we said that very often the left hand plays the notes which are below the middle C, but of course sometimes it happens that we have to represent some notes which occurs above the middle C. So we have to understand also how to represent the upper notes than the middle C in using the bass clef. So here we have the bass clef, and of course we have to go to the opposite direction. So we have to move up. So now I have to write above the first ledger line, and of course since now I'm using the ascending scale, so C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and C again. Now I have the D note, of course. Then if I want to represent the E note, the next upper note, which is an E, of course, the upper E, then the D, then this D, I have to use the second ledger line. So I write on the second ledger line, of course, the F note will be represented this way. So this is something quite important. We managed to write and to read all the notes, also using the bass clef. Now we have to notice something very important. We have to notice this, that the middle C can be represented in two different ways, depending which clef I'm using. So if I use the bass clef, I will use this symbol. But of course, if I'm using the treble staff, the treble staff or the treble clef, I'm using now another symbol, which of course is this symbol. We can see it, okay. And of course, this this applies also for the D note. So this is the way to represent the D note using the bass clef, and this is the way, the notes which represent the D note, which is next higher than the middle C, using the treble clef. The same, of course, also applies for the E and the F. So, of course, these are all notes which are above, which are higher notes than the middle C. And of course, it is the same if we consider the notes of the that we can find below the middle C. So for the B note, the A and the G, it is the same. This is the right way to represent this B. So the B, which is next lower than the C, than the middle C, and of course this is the way using the bass clef, and this is the way using the treble clef, and this of course is the same for the A, and this of course is for the G. Then again I can go down to the F and to the E note. Sorry, this one is the E note. So this is the right way, and this is something very important. The sounds are always the same. I mean, if I take these two sounds, they are exactly the same sounds, but depending on which clef I use to represent them, I will have two different symbols. This is something very important that we have to understand, and I hope it is quite clear, of course.